Well, welcome along to the Timeform Sporting Life Weekend Best Bets. David Ord, joined by the erstwhile colleagues Ben Linfoot and Matt Brocklebank, to take a look ahead to Group 1 action at Newbury on Saturday. And a really interesting Group 1 it is too. The Archicab Lockinge stage. We're going to the Timeform ratings on screen. 12 months ago, this was all about one horse. Ord began his coronation with victory in this. Looking at the Timeform ratings this time around, it isn't the case. Look at 141, top rated My Prospero, clear of Mutasaabeq, Modern Games, Light Infantry, Laurel, 132p, indicating there's progress to come from her. But it's a fascinating Group 1. Ben Linfoot, My Prospero's got a bit of wiggle room there on Timeform ratings. Is it that straightforward?
Probably not. He's the obvious starting point, isn't he? Because I felt he was just in a bit of a Ord shadow last year when he was making his name for William Haggis. It was all a little bit softly, wasn't it, at first? Ran in his maiden at Newbury, went to the Heron Stakes, and then suddenly burst onto the scene in the St James's Palace. Won at St Cloud after that, and obviously when Ord was sent off 1-4, was it, for the Champion Stakes, My Prospero a 22-1 chance, which sort of tells you, where they were in their careers at that point last autumn. But I think as a 4-year-old, we're really going to see My Prospero come out and show even better form than that. So I think he's the right top rated on what we've seen in the past so far. But his best form, of course, is that 10 furlong form on Champions Day, and this is a mile race, first time out. He might not be able to run to that figure, so it's an interesting conundrum. But he's a lovely horse.
Matt, Modern Games, Godolphin, typical Globetrotter, some real top level mile form to his name. Straight mile at Newbury, first time out. Where do you see him?
Yeah, it's hard to knock this little horse, isn't it? He's been a fabulous horse, won at the Breeders' Cup as a juvenile, and you certainly can't fault that 2022 form either. He won 3 times at the highest level. He was second to Ord in the Sussex Stakes as well. So obviously you take out that absolute superstar, and he's coming with another Group 1. He was beaten in his prep run this time around. It was over in America. He's done a lot of campaigning over there. He's beaten in the Maker's Mark Mile on his comeback. He didn't travel that well at all, and he certainly didn't pick up when first asked for his effort over there, so he'll have to brush up on that. I think the strong pace is going to help him. You've got a few front runners in here that seems to help him. Drying Ground, also a positive factor for him. I think at the start of the week I was looking towards horses like Jadumi, but Modern Games, Drying Ground, a good gallop to chase, and that turn of foot that he's got is going to be potentially race winning. I suppose you could say he's a little bit vulnerable to a potential improver in here. We've seen a lot of Modern Games, and maybe 1 or 2 of these others are a bit less exposed.
Let's talk about the pace. We've got the pace map to look at. Matt said there's a good strong gallop on here, Ben. Looking at the pace map, it's all low in terms of the stalls.
Yeah, it is. Jadumi and Mutasaabeq are the 2 dots on the far right hand side there that you would think would be most prominent in the early stages in this race. I think there's a couple of others you could throw into the prominent mix as well, the likes of Berkshire Shadow and Chindit, yeah. An outsider like the Wizard of Eye would probably be up there as well. So the predicted pace is very strong from Timeform, and I would probably concur with that. I certainly don't think it's going to be a muddling affair anyway.
Let's have a look at one of our first video clues here. Jonathan de Gosden couldn't run his Spiral. He was favourite, didn't appear among the decks, and they're still unearthed a leading contender in Laurel, Matt. What do you make of her? Yeah,
I think she's a very worthy backup, and saying backup, I'm not totally sure. Obviously, Inspiral's going straight to Royal Ascot. I don't think there's an issue with her, so it's a real vote of confidence that Laurel does come here. Now, this is her only defeat. When we saw her in the Sun Chariot Stakes, she was actually supplemented into this race and was sent off at 9-10-1, and she ran a massive race. Obviously, Fontaine is the horse in the yellow silks towards the stand side, and got first run a little bit, had maybe the benefit of being by the rail, but Laurel had every chance of going by. Didn't quite look fully furnished that day. She looked a big strapping daughter of Kingman, always a horse that might improve again at 4, and it looks like she may well have done. She has that real flash of brilliance, doesn't she? That sort of Kingman stamp about her. Looked to improve at Kempton. She was an easy winner of a listed race on Easter Monday. If you go back to that day, nothing really looked too impressive on that occasion. There was quite a strong headwind when they turned into the straight at Kempton, yet she really did make a striking impression. So I think that probably wants marking up. She's obviously more than a listed horse. Interesting, this is the fork in the road for her, isn't it? Potentially going down back against her own sex in the Group 2 Duchess of Cambridge at Royal Ascot, or she could go well here and maybe tee up a shot at Inspiral and the like in the Queen Anne itself. So for me, she's sitting on a huge amount of potential still, and potentially the brilliant performer in the race.
Let's talk about Mutasaabeq, if I said that correctly. Probably didn't. He's interesting, Ben. Here he is, blue and white Shadwell silks in front, and that's the key with him, isn't it?
I think it is, and I think he likes sort of dominating in these small field affairs. The Rolling Mile, of course, lending itself well to this type of tactic. This was a good race, Native Trail in the Godolphin blue there in second, and Light Infantry on the far side in the blue and green, who's an interesting horse for the Lockinge as well. I think Mutasaabeq, this is his bag really, a small field Group 2. It's 10 races since he last ran in a Group 1. That was the Guineas. So it's a step up for him. It's a big day for him on Saturday, and I just wonder if tactically in a better race he might be found out. I actually think Light Infantry is a more interesting horse for Newbury on Saturday.
Time for the talker to stop, the tipping to start. Quickly, selection please.
I'm going to go with Light Infantry. He's a very lightly raised horse for David Simcock, who probably, arguably, brings the best mile in form in Europe, certainly to the table in this race. When he was a neck behind Inspiral in France last summer, she would probably be favourite for this race had she turned up, and he was only beaten a neck. And I think the way the race is going to be run, we were talking about the strong pace, is going to be held up by Jamie Spencer and come with a late run. So around 10-1. I think Light Infantry's the bet for me.
Well,
just to counter that, I thought Mutasaabeq had quite a lot in hand that day. He was giving him £3 as well, and I just think he might be a bigger, stronger model. As a 5-year-old, I'd have a lot of respect for him. I was leaning towards maybe Jadumi at the start of the week, but I do think Laurel is potentially the real star in this field. As a miler, I think she's the most likely winner, probably priced about right.
Let's move on to the big betting race, and a race I know you two will be salivating about. It's the Bet Victor London Gold Cup, always a tip-top handicap here. We've got the ratings, and that's just about what you would expect. Not much between the top 5 or 6 in there. Royal Lime, top rated 115, 114 Forza Timeo, all the way down there to 109. So it's a really tight handicap. We've got video clues here to start with, and one of the big players is a horse called Desert Hero. Ben, we're going to get the video of Desert Hero here. What do you make of him in this race?
He's certainly one of the obvious ones, Dave, isn't he? Trained by William Haggis for the King, of course, the son of See the Stars. And it was sent off 1-7 this day at Redcar in a novice race last back end, and he got the job done. But you watch him here, he does just hang to his right in the closing stages. You see him there. It's hardly the most impressive run. It was heavy ground this day, but I do wonder if he might be a little bit of a thinker, this horse, and at fairly short prices I am quite keen to take him on. William Haggis was talking about a Derby trial for him at the start of the season, and he has ended up here in a handicap, so I just wonder if he has come to hand as connections would want. We shall see. He could be very well handicapped off 94, there's no doubt about that. He's obviously highly thought of, but at the prices I just want to take him on.
Let's have a look at the time form pace map now, Matt. As you would expect, it's an interesting chart with a race of this nature. Let's talk about pace angles, and Loyal Touch is one that springs to mind.
He does, yeah. Timeform are predicting, again, very strong pace in this race. It doesn't always work out, does it, in these big field handicaps at the weekend, when, despite the fact that a few of these horses have been prominent in their previous races, nothing really wants to be sort of cutting each other's throats at the head of the affairs, and sometimes around the bend here you see them just put the handbrakes on after going around the bend, and Frankie Dettori is going to be a prime example. He's a fascinating jockey booking, obviously, for Charlie Johnson's Loyal Touch. He's actually only had the one ride for Charlie so far since Charlie took over the licence, but loads of success for Mark over the years as well. And the Johnson team have won this race in the past as well. Loyal Touch is he's got some really eye-catching form. He was third in the maiden at Glorious Goodwood last summer. The Foxes won that race, obviously the Dante winner. He's a no-nay-never colt. You'd strongly suspect that the drying ground, the conditions are going to be absolutely fine for him. And he's very well related. He's a half-brother to the Irish Derby winner, Sovereign. So again, you're looking at potential improvement. He's moving from a mile up to 10 furlongs. That should bring about more improvement. He's gone up £5 for the win at Kempton. Again, like I said, over a mile in that handicap. He had quite a lot in hand at the line. I think he's going to be well up to defying a mark at 90 at some stage. He's a very good price. He's about 14, 16 to 1.
Let's talk Exoplanet, Ben. It's our final video clue. Is this a significant video clue?
I think it is the most significant video clue, Dave, yeah. London Gold Cup, LGC, could also stand for Lurking Group Colt.
How long did you take to work on that? Did you just think of that top of your head?
No.
Yeah,
That's been
nice,
bubbling
nice
away
one.
for years. But this race, it does find group horses. We've seen that with the likes of Alcazim and Defoe. And Defoe is a significant one because he is trained by Roger Varian and owned by Shaker Bay, just like Exoplanet here. And you can see him in the yellow chasing home the future Derby winner, Military Order, who came out and won the Lingfield Derby trial, and the horse that won at York just the other day in third.
Chess Piece,
that's the one for the Crisfords. So it's obviously really good form. He's rated 97 now. If he's got entries in the Irish Derby, Royal Ascot as well, even the Irish 2000 Guineas. So he's obviously highly thought of. A mark of 97 could underestimate him. I think he's the one to beat.
He's the selection?
Exoplanet is the selection. Yeah, I think there's loads of interesting other ones as well we could talk about. Richard Fye's got a couple in there, and the one out of his two that I thought might be the most interesting is the son of Caravaggio, Old Smoke, who steps up in trip, but on his dam side, it looks like that's going to work in his favour, stepping up in trip. And certainly his run last time at Thirsk, that's been franked by the runner-up, would suggest that he's going to get even better now. He tackles 10 furlongs. He's about 25 to 1. He's a really interesting each-way prospect, but for win purposes, Exoplanet for me.
That selection?
Yeah, if you like Exoplanet around 5 to 1, you've got to be interested in Silver Sword for Dylan Cunha. This horse, if you look at it, Exoplanet was beaten 4 and a bit lengths by the Appleby horse there, and this horse finished 5th to him, beaten only 4 3/4 lengths. He's getting more than a stone from Exoplanet in this handicap now. Obviously, this horse has had his quirks. He refused to race on his first 2 starts back in August. This slowly turned him around. He caught the eye when stepped up to 10 furlongs. He was second to Empress Wu, a filly held in quite high regard, obviously not totally disgraced in the Musadora at York earlier this week. And then we've seen him just the once so far this season when winning a fairly soft Southwell maiden. He won by, with any amount in hand, 3 and a bit lengths, nearly 10 lengths back to the third. So it's a bit of a guess up. He's got a mark of 82 and he sneaks in here off a low mark. Obviously Cunha, the South African trainer, making ripples, I'd say, in Newmarket. And he's got Greg Chain, the sort of experienced, again, South African jockey, in the saddle for this horse. He's got a pretty tidy record so far. He's only had 2 or 3 rides and he's won a couple already. So yeah, I'm going to put my faith in Dylan Cunha. Looks like quite a shrewd customer to me.
There you go. Same form lines, 2 different selections. It's a really, really interesting race and a really, really interesting day of action. And good luck with your own bets on Saturday. We'll be back next week looking ahead to the key weekend action.